sister cities since 2011. This special relationship was kicked off in 2014 when Columbia's mayor, at that time Steve Benjamin, welcomed a delegation from Accra and then later visited here himself. And just last year, the Columbia World Affairs Council hosted a delegation from Ghana, including your mayor, Elizabeth Saki. The South Carolina legislature, where I once served, passed a resolution welcoming her and inviting her to participate in several key events. So the goal of the Sister City program, which was started in 1956, is to create global relationships based on cultural, educational, information, and trade exchanges. It's also to develop friendships that can promote peace and prosperity through person-to-person citizen diplomacy. So I would encourage all of you, practice a little diplomacy this week and make some new friends. So moving on to the nuclear portion of this presentation, as many of you know, the NRC is an independent agency that regulates the peaceful use of nuclear technology in the United States. The NRC and its predecessor, the Atomic Energy Commission, have more than 60 years of experience regulating the world's largest nuclear power program. Over that time, the industry was born, developed, and changed considerably, requiring the NRC to adapt how we license and oversee nuclear power. As the industry's evolution continues to accelerate, it's important that we identify enhancements to our processes while continuing to fulfill our nuclear safety and security mission. For example, the NRC is having pre-application engagements with more than 15 vendors working on an array of different small, modular, and advanced reactors. We have also engaged with industry groups, research organizations, government agencies, national laboratories, and international counterparts to maintain awareness of new technologies and understand the potential regulatory needs that might be required. To ensure we're ready to regulate the full spectrum of new reactor technologies, the NRC has made considerable progress in developing a technology-inclusive, risk-informed, and performance-based licensing framework for advanced reactors and SMRs. This new rule, which I referred to a little bit yesterday, is called 10 CFR Part 53, and it aims to strike a balance between flexibility and predictability, providing clear performance-based requirements and allowing vendors to propose unique approaches to demonstrating the safety of their design. The Commission in August also updated our requirements for emergency preparedness, allowing alternatives for SMRs and other new technologies in recognition of their smaller footprint and potential hazard. This risk-informed approach allows more flexibility than traditional one-size-fits-all approaches to emergency planning that we had previously used. As our principles of good regulation tell us, we must keep in mind that independence does not mean isolation. The NRC's business is the public's business. Therefore, in all that we do, it's important for us to be clear about our role. The NRC provides independent oversight, making decisions exclusively to protect public health and safety, and not for economic or political reasons. We conduct our work, we conduct it transparently, providing key information through a comprehensive website, open meetings, and a vast online database. In fact, in a typical year, the NRC conducts about 1,000 public meetings. This openness allows the public to see, understand, and to participate in NRC decision-making, contributing to public confidence in the safety and security of nuclear power in the United States. Engagement with interested stakeholders, both domestically and internationally, is key to the success of our regulatory efforts. Therefore, and similar to my colleagues and predecessors on the NRC, I'm a strong proponent of international engagement. In 2014, the Commission issued an international policy statement which reinforced that international activities are integral to the NRC's mission and directly support U.S. foreign policy objectives and the NRC's domestic mission. We also have an international strategy for 2021 through 2025. This strategy's overall goal is to foster and maintain collaboration with international counterparts and multilateral organizations to positively influence global and domestic nuclear safety and security. You can view this policy statement and our international strategy on our public website, which you can easily find by Googling NRC International Programs. International cooperation is vital to the success of the NRC's critical domestic safety mission. This cooperation helps us to learn from one another, ensures timely sharing of operating experience, and advances global nuclear safety, security, and non-proliferation goals. The NRC's regulatory partnerships are critical to the continued high levels of nuclear energy safety, particularly given the interest in new and developing technologies. I believe that engagements such as the dialogue this week that we're having allow regulatory partners and other stakeholders to share and discuss valuable information regarding institutional safety and security priorities that will help to shape our domestic programs. With these goals in mind, the NRC is engaged in a wide range of bilateral and multilateral activities that contribute to enhancing the safety and security of nuclear activities worldwide. This engagement enables us to share best practices and lessons learned. It deepens our understanding of different perspectives and ensures we don't make decisions in a vacuum. To facilitate this information exchange, we have more than 50 bilateral agreements, including one with Ghana's NRA, as well as with regulatory counterparts in almost every country with a power reactor program. These agreements facilitate technical exchanges, regulatory information sharing, personnel exchanges, and regulatory assistance. And these exchanges contribute to nuclear safety and security worldwide. So I'd like to offer a few specifics about our cooperation with our Ghanaian friends. The NRC has been working with Ghana since the NRA's inception. We signed our inaugural bilateral agreement with the NRA in 2017. Since then, we've engaged frequently on a variety of nuclear energy safety and security-related topics as Ghana develops a regulatory oversight program for nuclear power. On a personal note, I'm happy that I was able to meet Professor Abo back when he visited the United States in 2019 at our RIC conference. We had a great time discussing opportunities to cooperate on safe nuclear technology, and plus, he actually went to where I went to school, Clemson University, for 2 years. So it was nice to meet a fellow Clemson man. We've worked bilaterally with the NRA on the full spectrum of nuclear regulatory issues, most recently on standard review plans for nuclear power plants. The NRC has collaborated with Ghana on its public communication strategy, development of regulatory requirements, licensing and oversight of radiation sources, use of industry codes and standards, reactor siting, and application reviews. In addition to our regulator-to-regulator collaboration, we've been a part of broader government-to-government engagement. For example, in partnership with the United States State Department's Foundational Infrastructure for Responsible Use of Small Modular Reactor Technology, or the FIRST program, the NRC presented a workshop last year to the NRA and other Ghanaian stakeholders on licensing and regulatory oversight of SMRs. Right now, we're coordinating virtual training on reactor concepts and power plant engineering, foundational training that the NRC requires as part of our own inspector qualification program. We are actively exploring additional areas of collaboration, including additional work on radiological source oversight. We're also pleased to partner with the NRA and other African regulators through the Forum of Nuclear Regulatory Bodies in Africa. The FNRBA is an International Atomic Energy Agency regional network that the NRC has supported over many years, most recently through a workshop on environmental impact assessment for nuclear power plants held here this past February. The goal of the NRC's international assistance is to support other regulators as they build their oversight programs. Here in Ghana, we're working to help the NRA prepare to review a license application, make well-informed regulatory decisions, and exercise strong regulatory oversight of nuclear power. This is a long-term partnership that will endure independent of what reactor type Ghana ultimately chooses. We will not tell the NRA how to run its program. We know from our long-standing relationship that they have the technical expertise to develop the program that will work best for Ghana. But we will be here to provide support to the NRA as it continues developing that technical, competent, independent regulatory program. I believe that all of us here share the goal of safe and secure use of nuclear power. In summary, the NRC stands ready to help the NRA as it prepares for a significantly expanding workload. We've licensed over 100 light water reactors in the United States, and we stand ready to share our experience in doing that, both positive and negative. We've also certified a small modular reactor design, and we're working on approving the designs for several others. We're working both bilaterally and through International Atomic Energy Agency programs to ensure that our partners can benefit and leverage our licensing experience and not recreate the wheel. So I'd like to conclude by thanking you once again for joining us at the summit this week, and I look forward to some very interesting presentations, panel discussions, and informal conversations around the margins of this event. So thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Gordon, and I'm the director of the Atlantic Council's Nuclear Energy Policy Initiative. And before we begin, I also would like to thank the U.S. Department of Energy, especially the Office of Nuclear Energy, and most especially Deputy Assistant Secretary Alicia Duncan and her wonderful team. I also would like to thank the Nuclear Power Institute of the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. Welcome once again to our in-person audience, and welcome as well to our virtual audience. We are live streaming this panel on social media and on Twitter at AC Global Energy, and we are also streaming at ACTV, or Atlantic Council TV. So with that, I am delighted to introduce each of our panelists. Dr. Ni Kwashi Alote, who is Director General of the Ghana Nuclear Regulatory Authority. The Honorable David A. Wright, who now needs no introduction, but he is Commissioner of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And M.C. Hammond, who is General Attorney at the Office of General Counsel in Civilian Nuclear Programs at the U.S. Department of Energy. So let's begin. Dr. Alote, your mandate is to authorize and regulate the civilian use of nuclear and other radioactive sources in Ghana. Talk to us a little bit about nuclear regulation in Ghana, especially regarding the research reactor, and tell us about how the regulatory ecosystem here has been developed.
Well, thank you very much. Well, in 2015, the government enacted the Nuclear Regulatory Authority Act, Act 2015, that is actually Act 895, and actually that set up the Nuclear Regulatory Authority, and which actually has the main purpose of regulating all the civilian use of nuclear energy and radiation in the country. Prior to this, the Radiation Protection Board of the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission was the one regulating all nuclear energy and radiation issues in Ghana. But actually, we needed to actually divide as a country the operators from the regulators. So based on that, in 2015, the NRA was actually formed, and it took a group of staff from the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission to the regulatory authority. Now, the Nuclear Regulatory Authority is a 3S regulator, so we actually deal with nuclear safety, nuclear security, and nuclear safeguard. And actually, all this is housed in one directorate called the Nuclear Installations Directorate. So actually, that deals with nuclear installations and everything linked to that. Now, we also have another directorate called the Radiological and Non-Ionizing Directorate, and they regulate all radioactive sources and radiation emitting devices. And actually, these come from the medical sector, the industry sector, mainly mining and actually oil and gas, and the construction sector, and then also research also. So in regards to regulation of our research reactor, we actually have one research reactor in Ghana, which is actually called the GA1. We went with Commissioner Wright there this morning to actually have a tour of the place. And what do you call it? This is actually owned and operated by the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. And actually, as is required, they are the prime. They actually have the prime responsibility for safety, security, and safeguards, but the NRA offers all the regulatory oversight that actually must take place. So actually, we actually ensure that we license them based on license submittals that they provide, and also facility inspections that we actually carry out. And another thing is that we also license all their operators. All the operators must make sure that they are licensed to be able to operate the plant. And one particular thing that we actually did was that between 2016 and 2017, we actually changed the core of the reactor from a highly enriched uranium core to a low enriched uranium core. And in this case, the regulatory authority provided all the regulatory oversight to actually get that done. So actually, this gives a nutshell of the regulatory ecosystem that we have in Ghana now. Thank you.
Dr. Olote, thank you so much. And as I said yesterday, even as we're looking at the full nuclear energy ecosystem, I truly believe that the regulators hold the key to unlocking that ecosystem. And so it's really incredible to learn so much from you about the regulatory ecosystem that exists here already. Commissioner Wright, talk to us a little bit about the NRC's role, which I know you mentioned previously in your keynote remarks, but its role in licensing U.S. reactor designs and the implications of that work for U.S. civil nuclear exports.
So, thank you again for the question. I want to be sure that I understand the export part of this for you. When we do, as I mentioned, we've done 100 licenses. We've been here 50 years. We've got a myriad of designs that are before us right now. So I think it's important for us to stay on top of what the country needs and what we need domestically, right? We need to be timely in everything that we do. As I mentioned yesterday, we take a hard look at all aspects of the design of the reactor, and from comes from the fuel to the reactor vessel to including piping, the containment of everything, surrounding everything, and our reviews are robust. And I guess the focus is always on safety and security, but for our people and our public in the United States and to our counterparts of like-minded countries around the world, when you get a design approved by the NRC, you know it's safe. Okay, and you know it's going to operate. So I think that's critically important that we do that. Now, because we don't do it that way, the converse is not good. It's not a good outlook. It's not good for us. It's not good for those countries. So we recognize that promoting worldwide nuclear safety and security means supporting also the infrastructure that undergirds that, right? So we've got to make sure that, we have 50 international regulatory counterparts. We don't want to regulate in a vacuum. We need to make sure that we understand what those are and how we can best work to help them and assist them. So you've licensed, it's safe. Okay.
Commissioner Wright, thank you so much. About how your office engages with the NRC and how your work on civilian nuclear programs from within DOE differs from the role of the NRC.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Dr. Gordon. I think this question requires a little bit of history on the U.S. Regulatory regime in terms of how the DOE and the NRC interact together. We passed our Atomic Energy Act in 1954, and that stood up the Atomic Energy Commission, which at the time was responsible for just about all aspects of the nuclear regulatory program, from defense to domestic and civilian. And then similar to what happened in Ghana when they split out the GAEC and the NRA, in 1974, Congress passed the Energy Reorganization Act and split out the responsibilities between the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, stood up the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the other activities went into the Department of Energy. So now the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is responsible for the regulation and licensing and safety, public health and safety for our civilian nuclear programs and all aspects of that chain, whereas the Department of Energy, we do a lot of promotion of nuclear energy. We have a lot of the R&D. I think you all yesterday heard from the folks at our labs that are working on a lot of those research and development initiatives. And my role in the council's office at the Department of Energy is to work with our client in the Office of Nuclear Energy to help develop those awards and agreements to those nuclear startups and those new companies as they work on their research technology. This is, it helps ensure that, say for example, we're doing research and development, we want to make sure that, this taxpayer-funded research and development, the intellectual property provisions are protected if we need that for future use in the United States. We also have started developing a lot of milestone-based award programs. So when we present these awards to folks, they're based on the awardees achieving certain milestones in order to get their funding. And if they don't get the funding, then we have that taxpayer money protected. And so that's a lot of our engagement on that. On the other side, we also deal a lot with on the Department of Energy, the Price-Anderson Act is also split between the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy. That's our nuclear liability law. So any DOE contractors are indemnified under the Department of Energy, and that encourages work for our contractors to do this types of research and development and other work with the Department of Energy.
Ms. Hammond, thank you so much for that incredibly useful overview and to, again, really understand the differences between the NRC and then the legal components of DOE. Dr. Olote, I'd like to go to you because you recently signed an MOU with the US NRC for cooperation and exchange of technical information. And Ghana, as I believe we heard about yesterday, has also adopted the IAEA's milestones approach for countries that are considering or planning their first nuclear power plant. So could you talk to us a little bit about your engagements with the NRC and also with the IAEA?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Section 50 of our Act 895, it requires us to actually engage with other regulatory bodies from other countries and also other multilateral organizations. So the NRA, since it began, has actually sought out to actually make sure that we actually cooperate with a lot of other organizations, both in Africa and beyond. Okay, so we've actually signed a lot of cooperation agreements with a lot of countries, and we do that. It's helpful for us because we are a young regulator in the field, so it's important to actually learn from mature regulators. Now, with the NRC, like Chairman Wright has already said, we signed our technical cooperation agreement in 2017, that was the first one, and we renewed it in September 2022. Okay, so that's not long ago, and our support from the NRC, I don't know how to start because Chairman Wright has talked a lot about it. It has been very, very fundamental to us. The US NRC, like we know, is a very mature, it's a very foremost mature regulator. They've been in the field for a long time, and they've actually had a lot of lessons that they've actually learned through all the business that they've actually been in. So for us, all our workshops, computer codes that they've given to us, document, what do you call it, reviews. We actually do some documents, we send to them, they review it, and they bring to us. All of that has been very, very helpful because we've been working with partners from their side who are actually industry experts. And actually, they've been able to guide our staff as to what they should do, and etc. So, how do you call it? We are actually hoping to strengthen this relationship. And one of the good things is that, what do you call it? Ghana has not yet chosen a partner as to which country we are going with, but we've been able to rely on the US NRC strongly, even though we've actually not chosen where we are going. So their support has been fundamental and very, very helpful for us. So we actually appreciate this this cooperation we have with them, and hopefully it will actually help us to move forward. Now, what do you call it? In terms of the IAEA, Ghana has actually set out to actually work with the milestones approach. And what do you call it? In August last year, our president made a fundamental declaration that we actually continuing with the nuclear power program based on the program comprehensive report that was submitted to him. So that actually ended phase 1 of the program, and it entered us into phase 2. So with regard to the IEA, the NRA relates to the IEA through the Nuclear Infrastructure Division of the IEA, who actually have set up an integrated work plan. Now, this integrated work plan is actually based on the 19 issues that actually are in the milestones approach, and then we actually come up with areas of support in all the 19 areas that actually need to be supported. So the NRA has areas in the integrated work plan where we work with the IEA on them, and the IEA provides us support to actually be able to work on most of these activities. And the support, again, from the IEA is linked to document reviews, expert missions, and then they actually also provide us with a lot of fellowships to other countries so that we can go and actually understudy other mature regulators. So actually, the support we are getting from these two organizations is very helpful. And for us as a young regulator, it's actually critical that we actually continue with this support, because that's the easiest way to learn. We cannot recreate anything. We just have to learn for what is existing and know how to actually move forward. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you so much. And I want to stay on this theme of international regulatory cooperation and harmonization. And Commissioner Wright, go to you. Could you tell us, from your perspective, what more needs to be done on international regulatory harmonization? And one question is, would you encourage or kind of foresee a Euratom-style consortium in sub-Saharan Africa?
Yeah, thank you. So I really think where we're at and what we're doing today is a little bit of an example, and I'm just going to piggyback a little bit here to just further explain the relationship between between DOE and us, right? DOE, if you go in simple terms, they are a promoter. They're like the salesman, okay? We're a safety regulator. We're going to make sure that whatever technology, whether it's, we don't pick winners and losers, they may support certain technologies in a grant or something like that. We have to be prepared at the NRC to regulate anybody who comes before us. So we're a safety regulator. They're the promoter salesman, but we have to be aware of what each other's doing so that we can come to events just like this right here, where we can show that, you know, when you get one, you get us all, right, in that cooperation. You know, I'm a big believer in the importance of international cooperation and information sharing. So it's, I mean, we conduct all kinds of international activities, from bilateral personnel and technical exchanges to with established regulators to helping provide capacity building and help navigate the path forward for, those who want to get into the space or are really trying to build upon what they're on now, what they're doing right now. And that means, we may exchange personnel, we may train virtually, but in the end, we just want to make sure that you have the technical support and training that you need to do what it is that you want to do in your country. To give you an example, we have and we mentioned it yesterday, we have a bilateral agreement, memorandum of cooperation with the Canadian nuclear regulators. And, with the CNSC, we've been doing review of several different technologies that are going to be licensed and built in both countries, right? And we're trying to show that countries can work together in review of some of the technical parts of these designs and build a package of information and data that each sovereign country could submit in their regulatory process and not have to duplicate it twice, rebuild the wheel, so to speak, And that way you're able to use that data, but yet you maintain your sovereignty in making that decision for your people in your country. So I think it's something that can be the foundation for things going forward. So is it going to be? It's going to be our style, whether it's your Adam or anybody else. It's going to be the way the United States and the country we're working with, what works best for them and us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commissioner Wright. Ms. Hammond, I have to look at my notes to make sure I get this title right, but you are the chair of the Technical Working Group for the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage, or the CSC. You always make me wish I'd gone to law school. And this working group works to establish a global regime to ensure that all countries have mechanisms for compensation in the event of a nuclear accident. And Ghana is already a treaty member. So could you tell us a little bit more about the treaty and also about your efforts to encourage other African countries to join?
Yes, that's right. So I think when we're talking about international regulatory harmonization, one of the things that I work a lot on is international nuclear liability. And that, is ensuring the prompt and equitable compensation for people, persons, and property in the event of a nuclear incident. And so in 1997, we started drafting the U.S., it was a U.S.-led delegation with the IAEA, and we started drafting the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage. I think as of now, there's over 170 reactors that are covered under that treaty, and we're very happy that Ghana is acceded to the treaty in 2016, and Ghana has also taken the lead and acceded to the Vienna Convention in 2020. And I think that, as we're speaking here, and I think Commissioner Wright alluded to with the NRA, the kind of expertise and the leadership of the Ghana Regulatory Authority in, taking these initiatives in global harmonization, and in particular with respect to working to establish a global regime in nuclear liability. And so that's on the international side, and we also work on the domestic side. So why is a nuclear liability regime important? We just talked about equitable compensation for people, property, and the environment in the event of a nuclear incident. And in addition to that, it also having a strong liability regime in place is a signal to your commercial organizations and other entities that want to invest in nuclear energy and developing nuclear energy technologies, that there's a strong liability regime provides legal certainty and also, helps in bringing those financiers and investments into this kind of technology. I think once you can say to a potential company or an investor or their board that you have legal certainty around liability, or you're a member of the Convention on Supplementary Compensation and have a strong domestic liability regime, it helps to make the case for their investors as well. And in addition to that, we're we're very appreciative of the participation and membership of Ghana and trying to expand that liability harmonization across. And I think just one more point. The previous panel talked a little bit about, some of the things that faced the U.S. nuclear industry very early on. And one of those things was nuclear liability. Like we, in the 50s, we had several professors from Columbia and Harvard come together before Congress, and they developed a new type of liability regime called the Price-Anderson Act, eventually passed as the Price-Anderson Act. And at the time, there wasn't really anything similar on the market. But now, I think also, as they said on the panel, we've learned from that. We've established those regimes and those nuclear risk pools so that there's the expertise here to kind of see what other countries have done and what we've established in our own regimes and learn from that as you move forward.
Ms. Hammond, thank you so much. And it seems as well that having a strong liability regime would send, as you said, a signal to the private sector, but perhaps also would send a strong signal to the public. And so, Dr. Olote, I want to ask you, in a country that is working to start its civil nuclear power program, what is the role of the regulator in establishing public trust?
Yeah, that's a very important thing. Actually, the people and government of Ghana, they will require that the regulator will ensure that safety, security, and safeguards, what do you call it, are being upheld strictly in the program, because basically that's what we were set up to actually do, all right? So they expect that from us. And in that regard, public trust, it comes from the public seeing that the regulator is actually independent, competent, and capable to do the work that he was actually set up to actually do. So the NRA has recognized this, and one of the, we've actually set up a number of approaches to actually deal with this. One of the issues that we've actually found out, and which is very straightforward, is that we need to ensure that our people, we have sufficient people who are well-trained, skilled enough to be able to do the regulatory work that we have to do. And we recognize that the industry is a very high-skilled industry, so we need to be able to ramp up the capacity of our staff to be able to know what to actually do. And actually, in doing that, we've actually had to also work on engaging government, okay, so that government understands our role and actually see how they actually should play to, how they actually should work to make sure that we are well funded and also have the sufficient staff to actually do the work we have to do. So it's actually both ways. Government cannot expect us to do the work when they also don't do their part. So we actually engaging government that actually what they've asked us to do, it requires high skill. So they have to actually support us directly to actually be able to do that. Because that is what is going to engender public trust and knowing that we have the capacity to do what we have to do. So actually that is one area we've actually been working on. Another area we've actually been actually doing to engender public trust is to actually engage our local media a lot. We've actually been having press briefings and other meetings to actually educate the media on our role. And our understanding is that if the media understand what we are doing, they can also educate the public. And then they can let the public understand what we are doing and how that ensures that things are done safely and securely and in a safeguarded manner. The last thing which actually we've actually learned from other mature regulators is to actually involve the public in our licensing process. So what do you call it? Most of our regulations and guidelines, once we develop them, we actually open them up for broad stakeholder input. and then we actually get comments and reviews from them, and then we actually include them in the process. And then also in the licensing authorization process, we actually have public hearings. So with the area of public hearings, the public is able to come up and give their comments as to what they have to do. So actually, these are areas in which we are actually working and actually putting our hands to the wheel on to actually ensure that the public appreciates, and then it will hopefully increase public trust for what we are doing. So this is what we're doing.
Dr. Olote, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your points about how the regulator has to engage with the government and with the media and the press, and then of course also with the public. And I think, Commissioner Wright, I'd like you to talk to us about engagement with industry and the ideal way, or in your mind, for the regulator to engage with industry, and how can we make the point, or can we make the point, that innovation and regulation can work together?
That it hadn't always been the case. I do know that. You know, you've heard me say up here yesterday and today that I'm a big fan of early engagement, of pre-application discussions and stuff like that. What that really means, when you boil it down, is that we're meeting with the potential applicant about their technology in advance of them submitting a formal application for either a construction permit or an operating license. And the value there, there's really two, it helps us in two ways. One, as the regulator, it helps us because it lets us understand if there's anything new and novel about the design, are there any gaps where we may be short in technical expertise, or do we need to do some type of paper or something like that to the top of a report or something to address those issues. For the applicant, it also lets them understand a little bit more about what it is that the NRC is actually looking for in order for them to move forward and to address those aspects of the design that we may not be fully educated on in one way or the other. This can really save a lot of time, and in the business with the industry, time is money, and that's important. And I think it's important for us, again, you know, effective regulation doesn't mean that innovation has to be stifled. They actually can work together, and that's you know, you've heard me say this at least twice from up here, and that is the NRC's role, as I view it, is to enable the safe use of nuclear technologies, not to disable it. So it means you know, when we see a licensee or an applicant who comes in with something that's innovative or new and novel that we maybe haven't seen before, we got to be open-minded about it, and we need to communicate effectively about it as well. We just can't say, oh, that's different, so you can't do it, which is kind of what we've done in the past, really, when you boil it down, and I think, you know, we're trying to move in a different way on that. You know, we also need to ensure that regulation and innovation are not at odds, and so that they establish, you know, in a performance-based framework, a regulatory framework, that they can focus on measurable outcomes rather than prescribed methods. And, you know, it can be left up to the applicant to come forward with what they feel creatively they can get through, and that's what we're trying to allow with our new regulatory process through Part 53. You know, if you've got a design you think can meet the test, we are going to allow you to bring it to us if that rule goes forward the way I envision it. And that way you can come to us, you make the safety case, and if you pass muster, then you'll be licensed. So bottom line, comes to us, it's going to be safe when it's licensed. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Wright, thank you so much, and I really appreciate this insight that you just mentioned, that it's, you know, on the regulator to enable and not disable, but also I think on the industry to engage early and often. And the other kind of piece of wisdom that we often hear when we talk about the industry's responsibility is to incorporate security and safeguards by design from the get-go so that they're not kind of aftermarket products. And that, again, also incorporating them from the start can save time and save money. So Ms. Hammond, could you talk to us a little bit about incorporating safety and security by design from the beginning, and the extent to which these measures might reduce the burden on the industry, especially when it comes to deploying, whether at home or abroad?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, to piggyback again on what Commissioner Wright just said, it's a really similar concept in early engagement with the regulators, with the IAEA on and the experts on various nuclear security issues, so that these measures can be incorporated in the designs. And when you're looking at something new that we haven't done before, a new type of coolant, or you're looking at new materials with different and how they react in different environments, incorporating those early. And I think it also goes to what we were talking about with public trust, and being able to go to your public and say, well, we've looked at this. I think in terms of we've looked at the recommendations from the IAEA, and we're certifying this design, and we're looking at how the NRC has gone through their design certifications, and looking at public health and safety, and also engaging the various non-proliferation groups, right, in terms of incorporating that. I know you've done a fair amount of work on this as well. So I think I just have to echo the early engagement with all of the stakeholders, and also one of the things I think that we've done a really good job with between the DOE and the NRC is we have a lot of memorandums of understanding between the two agencies on how we're cooperating. I think after the Nuclear Energy and Innovation Capabilities Act was passed in 2017, we've done like a lot of work between ourselves and MOUs and establishing cooperation there. And so one of the things is kind of breaking down those silos that you find between different regulated bodies and international bodies on sharing of information.
Thank you so much. And this has been, I think, a really fascinating conversation. And again, I cannot stress enough just how important I believe the regulatory space is. So thank you to the three of you for sharing your time with us, and please join me in thanking our panelists.